Welcome back, everybody. We're going to do some car modifications today. This is a downdraft carby manifold for an old model Toyota Celica. We're going to cut off the downdraft carby mounting position and we're going to replace it with a side draft Weber. Okay, a bit more fuel efficient, probably a bit more power, the whole lot's going to happen. And we're going to do it to this. So I'm going to get my crazy saw, I'm going to cut this all off. I'm actually going to weld 4 spots on this side to a big box section so that these parts don't move. And I'll also weld the back side of it too. I've already cleaned this up with the wire buff. Everything's clean for a nice little weld there. And I need to weld it so that these parts don't move because it's got to bolt back on to the head of the motor. All right, let's get into it. This is a CNC cut aluminium plate for a side draft Weber. And we are going to fit this onto there. Right, I've already marked the orientation of which way it needs to go. This is the top and also the outside where the carby bolts onto this side here. Okay, it's all clamped in place so nothing can move. And I'm ready to do a few little tacks to hold this all in place. I'll come around the back here first. Okay, there we go. There's enough weld on there to hold this in place. For me to now cut that, and hopefully this box section is strong enough. I think it is. I've used 50 by 75 box section. All right. And I'll let that cool down naturally, and that'll mean that everything's all right. Once it's clamped down there, it'll all cool down naturally and hopefully hold its shape. Then I can remove these cuts here and remove them there. It has been welded to the box. We're going to cut these off. Before I cut these off, I'm going to cut out the piece that's going to fit in there. We're going to mark it across here, take it over to the saw and cut this little piece, and we'll have a little piece that looks like it's going to sit there nice. Gives us enough room to put the flange on here and cut the holes into here. It's a square tube and it's probably not perfect for airflow, but for this problem that he has with his car, it's a fix. First things first, trying to line this up and find a datum point where we can cut this to. Probably about there with the same angle that's on this side. All right, I've got my little mark there. We'll go over to the saw and we'll see what we can do. This is the angle of the other side. Now we've got a mark on this side here. Follow the laser line. You can just see the laser line there. we'll cut this off. So after cutting, I'll sit this back in here. And unfortunately the camera doesn't get right over the top. If it gets right over the top, here we go. Gets right over the top there. We can sit this in there nice. Okay, we'll cut all of that out. It's very difficult to show you how it's going to fit, but I'm happy with that, and I'm going to start to cut the manifold up. I'm a bit hesitant about cutting the manifold up because maybe you can't get another one, I don't know. But this is what we're going to play with today. I'm going to clamp the manifold down and get my crazy saw, turn the compressor on and chop this baby up. As always, the safety first. Eye protection, ear protection. Pretty similar shaped holes there, and of course I can sand them and make them the same, but we've got it apart. Now we get this piece that we've cut out before, and that is going to sit there, and we're going to panel beat the ends in and weld it all on. Fill up the gaps, and it gives a nice kind of a flow. We'll trim out a bit of this here and a sort of a good flow. It's not going to be a super smooth flow, and we're also not chasing 400 horsepower, so we're just chasing a bit more reliable carby, I think. Anyway, we've got that off. came out of those two. We're going to do exactly the same to that. Put those two on there like so. Just a little bit of porting. We will make this thing flow. Okay, we want to build this from the finished porting. We want to build this from the other side. This is the bottom side of it. We want to see the top, because the top is what we are going to see. That sits over there. Probably get away with one clamp. Alright, there we go. Now we just want this to be flush, straight up and down. When we put this on, we need to be straight up and down, and we also need this part to be straight up and down. That gets welded on there. We're just going to trim off all of this after we weld it. We'll fill up what we can with weld, and we'll trim off the excess afterwards. You know, we'll try to trim it off beforehand, but just needs a little bit of a cutout in here and a cutout in here. Use the die grinder again so it fits in there nice. Should work. I was a bit skeptical, but it should work. That's cleaned up enough to get a couple of tacks on it. And once I get a couple of tacks on it to hold it in place, I can cut these corners and panel beat the sides in so that we're trying to make it a little bit round. Now the final fit up with this job will be welded out with the TIG welder, but for tacking purposes, I will be using the MIG. And that looks in the right position. Everything looks right. When I put this on top here, it's very close to level. I'm going to show that we're very close to level. Putting a spirit level on top here. Very close to level. So little. There we go. So, well, too much. So close to level that it's good enough. I'll tack it and then bang it straight. More to the point, I want to get the sides even, which they are, and the sides even, which they are. And come this way a little bit more. very finicky little job. Let's get this tacked on. So now that that's on, nice and solid, that's what we're dealing with. A little bit of a gap in there, not too bad, a little bit there. I can cut these corners off and panel beat them down and then re-weld them over with the TIG. Again, protection, ear protection, eye protection. A little bit more trimming with the air saw. I can see where it's going now. Curving that around there. Same on the other end, curving it around. It sits flat, flat. Okay, so next I've found a hole saw that is suitable for this. Perfect size. This sits on here. I'm going to mark the 2 holes. Get this pretty close. What have we got? Let's go 50 mil. 50 mil. Line that up. Here's my favourite hole saw arbor again. this little baby sits over the top here. Gets a weld around here, around here, around here, across this face here, and you can still pick up the bolts for the carby. Now before I weld this flange on, I am going to do a little bit of porting in here. I'm going to take some of the corners out from inside there and over here as well. A little bit of porting, take some edges off, and hopefully she'll flow a little bit better. Let's have a look in here. Well and truly flowing in there. Alrighty. High performance equipment, I call it. Just deburr the inside of that as well. Outside's easy, inside's a little bit trickier. Nice and smooth. Everything you feel in there is just nice and smooth. Now we'll see how much junk we've left inside there from deburring. How about I clean this off? Quick little demo. Clean bench. There we go. Big pile of swarf there. Abracadabra. It is now time to mount this on. Clamp that on there, put a couple of stitches on there and weld the whole lot out. I think these are, I can cut a little bit more off these before I weld them. Anything that does fall inside, when I take it off from here, we can clean it out. So there's no real drama for that. Just trying to make it look nice around these edges now when we TIG weld them and make it a nice rounded weld. That's our goal. Checking everything lines up. You can get a bolt through each side of here and here, because that's the bolts go right through off the carby, and you have to do a bolt up on the other side. Again, I'm just going to tack it with the MIG welder. There we go. Now a couple of little cleanups. Clean up these little edges across the top here. This will be all filled in with a nice weld. We'll go around there. The gaps are good enough. And just clean up these little edges across here and here. We can fill in the rest of the welds. Right, I'm ready to TIG weld it out. I'll do a little bit of fast forward TIG welding here. Oh, she's hot now. I feel that the best to weld across here is with the MIG. So I'm going to do that. It leaves a very nice little weld in there, and nothing needs to be machined out for those bolts, so it was a good decision. I didn't know if it was going to work or not, but it did. Same on this side. Left a nice little weld both sides. In fact, I'll do in there as well. Because it welded so nice, I'll get in here. Now I'm just doing a visual inspection to see if there's any pinholes. Can't see any. Inside, outside, it's very hot. This needs to cool down naturally before you unpick these tacks here. And we'll sand off a little bit of it. It doesn't need to be sanded off actually, it's quite nicely welded, if I do say so myself. All done. I've removed it from the strong back. I've run a file over that surface there. It didn't move too much. It moved a little bit, but not too much. I take this moment to say thank you for watching, and to all my subscribers out there, thanks for supporting me. It does help, and I hope I'm creating some things you like to watch. Thank you for watching.